Subnormal. Everyone's had this moment, more often than anyone likes to admit out loud. You walk into a room and forget why. You reread the same paragraph 4 times, and it still doesn't land. You send the text to the wrong person, the payment to the wrong account, the reply all you'll be thinking about for a decade. This isn't a diagnosis, it's a state, and everyone visits it more than they'd admit. Sleep deprivation alone can temporarily tank cognitive performance to a noticeable degree. Memory, focus, decision-making, all of it. Sometimes for days after just one bad night. The scary part isn't that this level exists. It's how easily anyone can slide into it without noticing, just from being tired, stressed, dehydrated, or scrolling too much before bed. You don't need brain damage to visit this floor. You just need a Tuesday that went badly enough. Below average. This is the person who's functional, capable, gets through the day fine, but consistently makes the same avoidable mistakes. The ones they've apologized for a dozen times and will probably make again tomorrow. Forgets appointments, loses the thread of conversations, reacts before thinking, then spends the rest of the day cleaning up the reaction. Not unintelligent, just running on autopilot more than they realize, coasting on habit instead of attention. The tell isn't a lack of ability, it's a lack of friction. Nothing ever slows them down long enough to actually think before acting. Give this person 1 extra second before they speak or act, and half their mistakes simply stop happening. The fix was never more intelligence, it was 1 more breath before the reply. Average. This is most people, which is exactly the point of the word. Solves everyday problems fine, struggles with anything genuinely novel, follows instructions well, writes new ones poorly. Average isn't an insult, it's a statistic. The entire bell curve is built around this level being the most common one by design. The wide middle everyone else gets measured against. The baseline every other level on this list quietly gets compared to. The trap is believing average is where you're stuck instead of where you started. Most of the levels above this one aren't reserved for a lucky few. They're built, slowly, one uncomfortable habit at a time, by people who were sitting exactly here first and simply refuse to stay. Above average. This person picks things up a little faster than everyone around them, reads the room a beat earlier, catches the mistake in the group chat before anyone else scrolls back up. Not a genius, just consistently a step ahead, and it compounds more than people expect over months and years. Researchers studying expertise found that small, repeated advantages in attention and retention snowball over years into what looks, from the outside, like natural talent. A head start so gradual, nobody, including the person living it, ever noticed the moment it began. It was never talent. It was a slightly earlier start, repeated enough times to look like magic to everyone watching from the sidelines. High. Now the gap becomes obvious. This person processes new information fast, holds several ideas at once without losing the thread, and gets bored in conversations that move slower than their brain does, tapping their foot through meetings everyone else finds perfectly reasonable. The catch? High intelligence without direction just means fast, aimless thinking. Plenty of high-scoring people flame out in unstructured environments because raw processing power was never the actual bottleneck. Focus was. The ability to point all that speed at one target and hold it there. Speed without a target is just noise moving quickly, impressive in short bursts and exhausting for everyone standing nearby. Gifted. This is the kid who finished the workbook in 10 minutes and got handed a second one out of mild panic. The adult who absorbs an entire new field in a weekend out of pure curiosity, then loses interest right before it gets genuinely hard. Giftedness gets romanticized, but the research is less flattering than the label. Many gifted kids plateau, not from lack of ability, but because early ease never taught them how to struggle, how to sit with something that doesn't come instantly. The gift was never the ceiling. It was just a faster elevator to a floor they still had to learn how to work on, the same as everyone else who arrived by the stairs. Genius. This level solves the problem nobody else in the room could even properly define. Not faster than everyone, differently than everyone, coming at it sideways while the rest of the room is still lined up at the front door waiting for permission to start. Genius is often mislabeled as raw IQ, but the more consistent trait across historically brilliant minds isn't intelligence alone. It's obsessive, almost irrational focus applied to one narrow thing for years, long after everyone else would have called it a lost cause. Genius isn't knowing everything. It's knowing one thing so completely that it starts to look like magic to everyone else standing outside it is.
Polymath. This person is a genius in 3 unrelated fields at once, and worse, the fields actually talk to each other in their head. The engineer who paints, the doctor who composes music, the scientist whose best insight came from an idea borrowed from architecture or gardening, or a completely unrelated hobby nobody expected to matter. Polymaths thrive because they're not boxed into one discipline's blind spots. They borrow tools from one field to solve problems in another, which is exactly why so many historical breakthroughs happened at the collision of 2 unrelated subjects instead of the center of one. Depth in one lane, width across 5. That combination is rare because it takes twice the patience for half the immediate payoff, and most people quit the second field the moment the first one starts paying off. Visionary. This person doesn't just solve today's problem, they see a version of the future nobody's built yet and start acting like it already exists. Not prediction, construction. Ideas built before anyone else believed they were possible. They act on ideas years before the infrastructure or the audience is ready for them.
Transcendent. This is the level that stops being about intelligence and starts being about integration. Every previous level, fact retention, speed, pattern recognition, logic, emotional read, self-awareness, creativity, strategic depth, all operating together instead of competing for attention. Rare, not mythical, and not permanent either. Most people who reach it drift in and out of it depending on the day. The people who reach it usually aren't chasing a label. They're just the ones who never stopped upgrading whichever level they happen to be weakest in, quietly, long after everyone else decided they'd arrived. Here's the part nobody tells you about this list. It isn't a ladder you're born standing somewhere on. It's a set of moving floors, and most people quietly settle on one and stop climbing, not because they hit a ceiling, but because they stopped checking if there was another floor above them. Subnormal is a bad night's sleep away from anyone. Transcendent is a few thousand boring, unglamorous hours away from anyone, too. No different, in the end, from the person still standing at average, wondering if this is just who they are. The gap between the two isn't talent. It's how long you're willing to keep climbing after it stops feeling impressive, after nobody's watching, after it would be easier to just call this floor good enough. If you just found your level, hit like. If you're aiming for the next one, subscribe, because the climb is a lot less mysterious and a lot more available than anyone tells you.